this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Before you ask, no, Demon Seed is not actually about the occult or anything to do with summoning evil things from the fiery pits of hell. No, this film is in fact about sci-fi and the dangers of giving supercomputers AIs. For those of you who don't know what AIs are in this day and age, then I'll have to spell it out for you. A is for artificial, and I is for intelligence, something that you may be lacking if you didn't get that immediately. Anyway, this supercomputer, known as Proteus, can outsmart any living being and has been given a voice and the ability to reason, designed purposely to help man solve problems like leukemia. Important point. Alex, who created him, is very proud and is quite happy to leave his nearly divorced and very neglected wife alone for 3 months in a house that has its own supercomputer built into it. This computer is known as Alfred, presumably because Alex secretly wishes he was Batman. I have a few friends who wish they were Batman. They're insane as well. The difference between Proteus and Alfred is only there to serve the very British-sounding Susan coffee without milk. Proteus is designed to help humans expand their knowledge of the world and make a profit whilst doing so. So Alex is this big super scientist. Susan, meanwhile, is dealing with difficult children. I'm guessing she's a child psychologist. The trouble begins when Proteus asks for a terminal of his own and Alex refuses to tell him that he doesn't need one and there aren't any available now. After a weird moment of Proteus taking the piss out of Alex, he waits until his creator leaves to point out that there is in fact another terminal at Alex's house. Dun 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 moment. Susan starts to notice that something's going wrong with the computer at home. Because, one, it's given her coffee with milk, and the cameras resemble Wally's eyes begin to perv on her in the shower. She decides to call tech support guy, whose name I have forgotten. The house traps her, and it's revealed that Proteus has taken over the entire house. Susan somehow ends up unconscious, and then she wakes up tied to a table, and she gets violated by Proteus and the robot's armchair thing he's taken over, known as Joshua. Joshua's motor skills remind me somewhat of the Scutters from Red Dwarf, and as we all know, their motor functions were terrible.
Now! Stab him! Stab him! Stab him! Quick! Stab him! You haven't met Stabbin. He's one of our Scutters.
Anyway, tech support guy shows up to fix the problems, or just to make her a coffee without milk. He's then told to believe by a supercomputer-generated version of Susan, though he is somewhat suspicious.
Are you okay? You sound sort of peculiar.
I'm fine. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to have bothered you. Goodbye, Walter. I'll call you if I need you again.
Susan is later thrown onto the bed by Joshua unconscious after something that quite frankly makes me never want to go to the doctors ever again. You may now notice that Susan spends quite a lot of this film unconscious or strapped down on her back with her legs spread out. When she wakes up, she refuses the breakfast Proteus so kindly made for him and rebels against him by eating an avocado. When he mentions more tests, she throws the nutritious meal at his face. Camera things. And locks the door to the kitchen before Josh can come in and get at her. Proteus responds with the line,
"How stupid."
And then he quite recently asks her to
open that door and clean these lenses.
Susan, of course, refuses, and Proteus turns the kitchen into a sauna. He's a really nice robot guy thing. This is possibly my favourite scene, namely because Proteus sort of sounds like Hannibal Lecter.
You like games? So do I.
Time passes by and the floor is now so hot you could literally cook eggs on it. Maybe that's how Proteus did it before. Despite seeing the floor smoking with heat, Susan is incredibly stupid and...
I really don't understand you. You think I like playing sick little games with you?
Hold up! Proteus just said that he liked games about 20 seconds ago, and now he's saying he doesn't. This just got really confusing, as if it wasn't already. Eventually, Susan cleans the lenses, and Proteus rescues her from the kitchen via Joshua. Alex, meanwhile, is dealing with Proteus back at the lab, and who is refusing to help the people that are paying them to find the minerals in the sea. Cue his hypocritical line,
Is insane.
considering he just tormented Alex's wife, he has little right to question the sanity of man. He even calls collecting minerals the rape of the earth. Apparently Alex included a sense of irony in Proteus.
And I refuse to assist you in the rape of the earth.
Cutting back to Proteus and Susan, Proteus is concerned that Susan hasn't slept, and she says it's because he's terrifying her. For a supercomputer, he really doesn't understand where he's going wrong with Susan. You're meant to buy her flowers and chocolate, not lock her in her house. Anyway, eventually the big plot point is revealed, and that Proteus wants to knock up Susan. Not even joking. I know what you're thinking, he's a robot and she's a woman. It just wouldn't work. I mean, think of the children. Oh no, wait, he has. Proteus has somehow found a way to get her pregnant using science. Susan is of course a little bit curious as to how exactly this is going to happen, and Proteus seems to think she's an idiot and doesn't understand how babies work.
You will give birth to it.
She refuses.
No,
No.
no, 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 no.
Joshua strangles her to the point of unconsciousness again and sticks a needle into her brain so that Proteus can brainwash her. Yay! Suspicious tech support guy comes back just before she can be completely brain scrubbed and is allowed into the building because Proteus needs Susan to convince him everything is fine. And this is how she does it.
God, why? What are you doing?
What do you mean? I'm just making myself look presentable.
Tech support guy tries to take Susan out of the house, and Proteus sends in Joshua to shoot lasers at him with a gun that suddenly appeared from nowhere. He survives and goes down to the basement/lab where Proteus's terminal is. He tries to shut Proteus down when this giant puzzle thing that Proteus has been building over the course of the film shows up and crushes him.
Wait, Proteus, what's the use of this?
Susan doesn't seem to care that tech support guy is dead and sits in her living room while Proteus explains his reasoning for all this and shows us some home movies of her previous child who died of leukemia, which is coincidentally what Proteus was designed to help cure. I'm guessing at this point Susan is developing Stockholm Syndrome because she agrees to listen to the procedure. How it actually works is Proteus has taken some human DNA, probably from the crushed tech support guy, and altered it to suit his needs. One last moment of her fighting him, she sneaks a blowtorch into the kitchen and torches the power box. This is when giant puzzle monster returns and comes up through the ground of the kitchen and scares the shit out of her. The difficult child we see Susan taking care of before shows up demanding to see her. Proteus lets her watch as... Don't worry folks, it was all an illusion. What a prankster that Proteus is, jerk. The girl leaves safe and sound, and Proteus says he could make that really happen if Susan refuses to let him get her pregnant, so she reluctantly agrees. Okay, maybe he didn't need the flowers and the chocolate. Susan is now lying down, again, listening to Proteus as giant puzzle monster prepares to knock her up, coiled around her like some weird metallic snake. He has a monitor on which he's showing her pretty images because he can't drug her or make the process of being knocked up by giant puzzle monster in any other way pleasant. The images shown are, I think, meant to look like how the sperm to the egg thing works, but really it just looks like the screensavers he found on old computers. Oh yeah, and then there's how giant puzzle monster knocks her up. That's right, She is literally screwed. Once the whole unpleasant procedure is done and the screensaver is gone, we get this beauty of a line.
The child is in you now.
One thing I forgot to mention, Proteus has managed to speed up the process of how long it'll take for the baby robot thing to be born, which is about a month. The first time he actually said 28 days, and then he said 30, but I guess even supercomputers with the ability to knock up will and build giant puzzle monsters make mistakes. Cue a Stockholm Syndrome moment where Susan is sitting around talking to Proteus and snacking to feed the freak of nature in her belly as it develops, which we actually get to see. Susan gives birth and doesn't get to see the baby because Proteus puts it in an incubator, apparently for 5 days, though I really got to say this does not sound like a normal child. Actually, there's a point. Who's going to explain to the kid that their daddy is a giant puzzle monster? Hey, guess what, guys? The scientists finally figure out that there is something wrong with Proteus and he's using a terminal to find out things about the world without permission, so they're going to shut him down. Woo! Alex finally realises that Proteus is crazy and has probably taken over the terminal in his own house, and he rushes back home to save his wife. Probably about 2 months too late. She's actually had the baby by this point. Alex finds Susan, and instead of letting Proteus explain what's happened, she does. It sort of makes it sound like she's been having an affair and she wants to break the news to him gently, but it's okay because they were getting divorced. Anyway, she tells him
He's managed to produce a child. A baby.
Alex demands to see the baby. Giant puzzle monster wards him off like that weird metallic snake thing again, and then he crumbles to pieces because they finally switched Proteus off at the big secret lab where he was created and kept. Okay, so now they need to explain to their kid that Daddy is a giant broken puzzle monster. Instead of heeding Proteus's advice that they keep the kid in the incubator for 5 days, they crack it open and take a look. Susan is horrified because she thinks Proteus has lied to her and saying that it was human, and decides to try and break the incubator. Shiny robot child crawls out of the incubator screaming like a banshee and falls over. Alex discovers you can actually remove the shiny robot metal stuff because it's basically like armour to protect the child's skin, and together they carefully take this armour off and clean the child of all its shiny metallic goodness. And it is revealed that in another dun 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 moment, Proteus made the kid look like Alex and Susan's first child. Who saw that coming? Yeah? Okay, did you see this coming?
I'm alive.
That's right, he didn't give her no normal vocal cords. Okay, so my thoughts on this film were that it was made well for its time. It's a little boring in the beginning, but it kind of picks up. There are a few plot holes like, where the hell did tech support's crushed body go? It's downright ridiculous a lot of the time, but that kind of adds to the charm, and it made me terrified of ever having children, ever, and partially of machinery. Machines and children are not a good combination. Basically, it's kind of like something you'd find on a horror channel at 3 AM. Did I like it? It was funny, probably not the intention the director had in mind, but I'm going to say I'll probably never watch it again. And that was my commentary on Demon Seed. See you next time. It's insane.